I'm the Highland scribe, scribe to the stones, to the winds, to the bloodlines that walk unseen. Come closer, closer still. You see, the fire's warm, but this tale tonight, this tale runs wild. Now, this is a dark Highland tale, and I'm going to tell it as it would be told when the fire burns low and the wind presses in a wee bitty too close. So listen weel, for this is a tale of love given and of love begrudged, and how the land itself remembers. You see, Sorcha was born in the winter, in the snow and wind, as some souls are. Her hair lay thick and dark as a raven's wing, curling close to her wee head. And when the sun would hit it just right, it had that reddy blue tinge, like iron warming in a forge. Her eyes were as brown as chestnuts, deep and steady. Her skin was as pale as winter itself, and her smile, folk said her smile could loosen the very frost for the stones. Now, our mother was a travelling woman by the name of Rowan. Fear so hard and quick o' laughter. Oh, a beauty so rare. Then she loved her daughter with her whole being. Sorcha grew among wagons and kin, never short of a pair of arms to lift her or songs to guide her to sleep. She learned early that the world could be harsh, but kindness was a shield stronger than any iron. However, when Sorcha was 4 winters old, sickness, as it does, came riding in the cold. Fires went out one by one, and the Rowan, she felt death sit down beside her, and she kent it would never rise fair again. So she wrapped Sorcha close, and she walked the long road to find the child's father, John, before the snow could seal the passes. Now, John had built a settled life for himself. He had taken a wife, Wilhelmina, a widow who had 3 daughters of her very own, and when he saw Rowan on his doorstep, oh my, memory struck him like a blade to the ribs. He forgot himself. Oh, and he ran up to her, and he grabbed her, and he held her, while behind him, his wife, Wilhelmina, watched, her face tightening like drawn wire. Rowena spoke plainly. She told him she was dying, and that the child was his. She asked only one thing, that Sorcha be kept, and that John would never let anything happen to her. John did not hesitate. Unfortunately, Rowena only lived a few weeks longer, and when she died, John buried her with honour, and with enough grief to hollow a man out. Sorcha came into the house, and she was given the largest of rooms and the finest of clothes, and she was paid pocket money, and he paid for the finest of teachers to teach her. Oh, she was in a life now that she never dreamed possible. But one thing was for sure, John did not treat any of them any differently. he treated all 4 of those girls the exact same. And for a while, the house rang with laughter, with shared joy. And they treated each other like sisters. But you see, loved watched is one thing. Love unwatched can be something so much darker. John rode off, away on business, leaving Wilhelmina in charge. And oh, she did weep loudly, loud enough for the neighbours to hear. Yet before his horse had cleared the bend, her kindness slipped from her like a mask. Sorcha was 15 now. Wilhelmina ordered that her books be taken, her dresses stripped down to work clothes, and she was made to become a skivvy and a servant. Punished for what? For smiles, for praises spoken to her by her own father. Punished for being seen. She prayed for the day that her father would return. Unfortunately, word was carried on a sharp wind. John had died. Wilhelmina, however, she counted instead of mourning. She knew that everything would pass to Sorcha, because John had told her he'd left everything to her. Envy began rooting itself inside her, deep, and it began to grow. Now, it's not that she was left out. He provided for her and her 3 daughters, but he made it clear that Sorcha was his and that she would inherit everything. Wilhelmina, struck with envy and jealousy, sent for a poacher. A hard-eyed man who kent the forest paths and had little mercy left in his heart. Take this girl into the woods, she said. Kill her and bring me her heart. I want it still fresh. Sorcha walked into the forest singing the old songs her mother had taught her, the ones meant to keep spirits gentle and the path straight. Rabbits ran close by, squirrels chittered above in the trees, and at her heels trotted her wee dog, Woofer, a faithful little thing, as faithful as a breath. The poacher watched as she sang, not a clue in her pretty little head of what was about to happen. He then crept up behind her. Her wee dog, Woofer, sensing what was about to happen, began barking, sharp, warning barks. The man struck the poor dog down with the hilt of his blade, and Sorcha turned, fear rising in her like ice water, and he lifted the blade towards her. Then the poacher looked into her eyes. He saw no arrogance, no threat, only sorrow and a kindness there that had not yet learned the actual truth of how cruel the world really is. His hand began shaking. Something old and half forgotten began stirring in him. He put his hand down. He couldn't do it. Run, he said hoarsely, turning her towards the deep California forests. Run, bide where nae man will dare to follow ye. Sorcha fled, heart breaking as she left her wee doggy behind her. The poacher cut out wee Woofer's heart and carried it back to her stepmother, who sat waiting. Now, Wilhelmina sat rubbing her hands in glee with an evil smirk upon her face when the poacher handed her the heart. She was going to take it to the lairds, you see. She couldn't have claimed John's full fortune while Sorcha was alive. She had to wait till she was either married or dead. Now, it's not that John hadn't left her anything, because you see, John had left her and her daughters plenty, but he made sure to say to Wilhelmina that Sorcha was his blood, his kin, and she would get everything else. They would be cared for, but Sorcha would be in charge. And for a woman of the house, she was not very keen on it. She would take this to the lairds, and they would give her everything. Or so she thought. As she stood there, telling the lairds of this tragedy that had happened to her stepdaughter, she handed over the heart to these men who she thought wouldn't notice. They took one glance and looked at each other. The elder of them asked Wilhelmina outright, "Where is John's daughter?" And she looked at them, and her little act of, "Oh, but she was killed in the forest, and this is all that is left of her." Women, we are hunters, and we ken the difference between an animal's heart and a human's. Where is John's daughter? I'll no ask again. Well, the truth of it is that she's heartbroken with grief and she just ran away. How am I supposed to run the house if she's not here and I only have a certain amount of money? Surely I should be entitled to everything. Her pleas went unheard. They did come to an arrangement. If Sorcha could not be found within the year, then everything would go to Wilhelmina and her 3 daughters. The whole estate would be theirs. Now back to Sorcha. She ran till her little legs failed her, and she fell among the moss and roots, grief and terror shaking her so. She just couldn't rise again. The forest pressed in close, breathing around her, and the air felt like it was thinning. The veil between worlds frayed like an old cloth, threads loosening where sorrow had worn it thin. Then the heather people found her. You see, they're no quite like folk, and they're no quite like beasts. They're shaped by the hills and the glens, and older than laws and than kings or kirks. They were the hidden kind of wild places, bound to stones and streams and ferns and fire. Ceor, antler-browed and broad-shouldered, lifted stone as easy as a breath and could hear the shifting of the mountains before they even moved. Leon, fox-faced and sharp-smiled, kent paths that no human's foot could ever leave a mark on, and he could vanish between one blink and the next. Then there was Bro, wide as a badger and steady as the earth set broken things right, and bone, branch, spirit alike. If it was broken, he could fix it. Then there was Eondu, crow-eyed and long-limbed, watched the sky and fate together, seeing what was coming long before it ever arrived. CL was an otter-limbed and quick as water, guarded crossings and running streams, keeping the balance between what passed and what stayed. Fioch, cat-eyed and restless, coaxed flame into obedience, warming without burning, destroying without cruelty. And then there was Moragla, hair-eared and quiet, read what was written between worlds, listening not only to what was spoken, but to what was withheld. Now they kent Sorcha, fae the knocking folk, kin to those born between the ways, children of the thresholds, and old bloodlines that never fully belonged to one world or the next. And they hid her deep, deep where the veil runs thin, where time bends and grief cannot find its mark upon you. There, seasons slipped so strangely, days stretched or shortened according to the need, and sorrow dulled its claws. Sorcha began to heal. She learned the forest laws and spirit sense, and she learned to listen before she spoke, to walk without sound, to read the moon, the mood of the waters and the winds. She learned that truth had weight, and that lies, no matter how small, do leave a footprint, even when they're spoken sweetly. She learned that love given freely strengthens the land, and that love hoarded poisons it. A year had passed, in the outer world at least. Wilhelmina stood cornered, pressed for proof that she could not give. Her accusations began unravelling before men who now watched her so closely. Shame began burning in her, and rage hollowed her until nothing remained but pure and utter spite. She sent for her sister in secret. With old craft and bitter skills, she twisted Wilhelmina's flesh into the shape of an old, bent hag, folding youth into wrinkles and strength into feebleness, and into her hand she placed the fruit of death, beautiful, gleaming, as red as a promise, and poisoned with a sleep deeper than the grave. Disguised in weeping false tears, although with Wilhelmina she was quite good at false tears, she found Sorcha at the forest's edge and spoke kindness with a borrowed mouth. Her voice trembled with rehearsed sorrows. Her eyes lied so well. Sorcha taught mercy, but was yet to be taught mistrust. She took, she ate, she fell. Not dead, but in between, her soul loosening its grip and slipping in between time. Now, when the folk at the heather found her, grief shook the entire forest. Leaves fell even though it was not autumn yet. Streams stuttered and stopped. Every charm and drought was tried. Every old word spoken. Nothing stirred her. At last, Moragla found the truth. He found it in an old, skin-bound book. Its pages were soft with age and sorrow. Sorcha's soul had slipped into the land of the in-between, where those unfinished walk with those that were remembered. Only one bound by love, not duty, not blood, not obligation, could bring her back. So they shaped a coffin out of living glass, clear as ice and warm as a breath, to keep death from truly claiming her. She lay within it, like snow at dawn. Then they sought an old knocking woman, bent as rootwood and sharp as a frost, who said only this: "Find Laird Thomas. His son James loved her once, and loves her still." James, when he heard, did not hesitate. The old woman opened the way, peeling the world back like bark from a tree. James crossed into the grey lands where Sorcha walked with her parents. Whole and unafraid, she did not wish to leave them now she had found them again. Her mother held her. Her father looked long at James and said, "Go back. Claim what is rightfully yours and live for us." James took Sorcha's hand, and together they returned. Sorcha woke in the glass coffin and wrapped her arms around him, weeping breath into his chest. Life rushed back like a tide water. They wed quietly, with forest and stream as their witnesses. Then they rode to her father's house, and Sorcha, well, Sorcha reclaimed it by right. Stepping across the threshold that had been denied, Wilhelmina and her daughters, well, they screamed and they cursed, and ultimately they were driven out. The land had answered, and the ground opened, swallowing them whole. Their cries were cut short, like a snapped thread. The forest went still. Now, listen closely. You see, the moral here is, love that is hoarded rots. Love that is given freely, well, it roots deeply. The land remembers cruelty. The dead do not forget kindness. And those who are born between roads and worlds will always find their way home. That is the tale as it was told to me. You may have heard it differently. But if you listen closely, unlike other stories, you can still hear Sasha's song threading through the trees in Scotland when the winter comes. I am the Highland scribe, scribe to the stones, to the winds, to the bloodlines that walk unseen. And until the fire lights again, sleep tight, wanderers.